lot about the billionaires and their efforts. How will smaller companies take on the big guys?
That's a great question. I think we've seen some of these companies be successful already. Some of these new entrepreneurial space companies. SpaceX is a great example. So they have, in 2012, there wasn't much, the US share of global commercial space launch was basically non-existent. And today, SpaceX is 65–70% of that market. So, and they've come in and they've done that by really focusing on basic business principles and transparent pricing, which I think doesn't get a lot of credit. So
Let me rephrase, Chad. How do smaller companies take on the Elon Musks and Jeff Bezos and Richard Bransons of the world?
That's a great follow-up, because now the SpaceX's and the Bezoses, Blue Origin, they are the big boys. And so I don't think that the companies, you're hearing a lot about these new small launch vehicles and how they're taking up these new constellations of small satellites. I don't think that they're competing with SpaceX and Blue Origin head-on. What they're doing is picking up the gap in the market that they're not addressing. So SpaceX started with a Falcon 1, which is a much smaller rocket, and they've abandoned that concept and moved on to the Falcon 9, the Falcon Heavy, and the larger vehicles that are going to help take us to Mars. And Bezos's New Glenn is of a similar breed. So the types of companies like Vector Space Systems, which we've invested in, is a small satellite launch vehicle, and they're taking up these smaller satellites that SpaceX and this New Glenn rocket are not really addressing.
So what makes the small satellite market such an attractive investment?
It is a market that exists today, and it's large. And you've got a lot of incumbents, legacy aerospace companies that have been really focused on the defense market for decades. And they've gotten very large, and they've done things a certain way. And we've seen new entrepreneurial ventures come in and really start to shake things up. What normally has taken very large bus-sized satellites that cost $1 billion plus or minus to build and launch, 15 years to put together. Now we're seeing these entrepreneurial companies come in and build these satellites for a few $100,000, launch them for a few $100,000. And in doing so, they're able to cover more of the Earth and get more data from these sensors. And so we're seeing a real proliferation of data from small satellite constellations versus the single large satellite.